my question for you involves this election in Wisconsin. As you know, there was an election for a Supreme Court seat in Wisconsin. 1% is considered a blowout in Wisconsin. And that's the last two presidential elections were decided by fewer than 30,000 votes. And yet this Janet Protasiewicz won by 11 points. I mean, a huge blowout. So my question for you is, what lessons can and should the GOP take from this? And what, if anything, will the party change after such a devastating loss?
Well, I think people are trying to nationalize this and say this was all about abortion, but I actually think it has more to do with candidate quality and also the fact that progressives continue to meddle in Republican primaries. So in this Republican primary, Jennifer Dorow, who was more, I think, electable in a general, she was pummeled by progressive groups who spent, so there's a progressive group called A Better Wisconsin Together Political Fund, left wing. They spent $2.15 million to boost up the weaker candidate, Daniel Kelly, who ended up winning the primary. Daniel Kelly was a flawed candidate. He already had lost an election for a judgeship by about the same margin, about 10 points. So I don't think you can extrapolate and say, oh, there's this, insurmountable, attack against pro-life thought and pro-life judges. It's just not true. I think that this guy, Daniel Kelly, he wasn't able to go beyond the conservative MAGA base, which you need to stand on it to get your base out. You need that to be motivated, but you got to grow beyond that. And I think ultimately he just couldn't do it. So I think that that's something that I'm really not hearing that's lost in the mix. And then the fact that, Democrats were spending so much in these primaries. And if they actually thought these MAGA candidates were a threat to democracy, they wouldn't be spending $2 million to help the MAGA candidate. I think it's disingenuous. What do you think?
Well, first of all, Dan Kelly was a former member of the Wisconsin Supreme Court, so it's not as if he hadn't been there before. Secondly, what happened was that, again, it's not so much abortion, though that's a major thing. It's how extreme the party is on abortion. For example, the legislature could not even pass an exception for rape or incest. Now, I know you don't believe in that, but more than 6 out of 7 Americans support an exception for rape or incest. And this is what is really holding the party down. And he couldn't go beyond the MAGA base because the 3 of the major pro-life causes that were supporting him wouldn't let him. And by the way, that advice that you're giving him to move past the MAGA base, maybe you can pass that on to the former president and some of the other candidates who are running, because I think it would be very helpful. But the bottom line is that this is the extremism that people perceive the Republican Party to have. That's why the party did so poorly in the midterms, underperformed expectations. And, you have to remember that particularly younger people, they don't care so much about parties. They care about issues. And it seemed only last week that the GOP and a lot of these pro-life people were saying, oh, don't worry, we just want to return it to the states. It's a states' right issue. Now you're trying to ban a pill that's been legal and safer than Tylenol and was approved during the Clinton administration. So, again, you didn't really answer what the party is going to do to move ahead of this other than moving outside the MAGA base. But it's a real problem. I think that abortion is a serious quagmire.